Hello, my name is Carla Sabotta. I write documentation for the Microsoft SQL Server Integration Services product. In this video, I'm going to show you how to implement a lookup transformation in full cache mode. You'll learn how to implement a lookup in a package by using a lookup transformation, cache connection manager, and reference dataset that is stored in cache. You access additional information in a related data source by performing a lookup. The lookup maps a value in an input data source to a value in the related data source based on a common column and returns the matching rows. The related data source is referred to as a reference data set. The first step in implementing lookup in a package is to add two data flow tasks to the control flow tab. In the first data flow task, we will add the cache transform transformation. And in the second data flow task, we will add the lookup transformation. The annotations that we've added to the data flow tasks briefly document what the tasks do. Annotations make it easier to understand and maintain a package. You connect the data flow tasks by using a precedence constraint. This ensures that the cache transform executes before the lookup transformation executes, otherwise the package will fail. In the first data flow task, you add the cache transform transformation and then connect the transformation to a data source that will generate a reference data set for the lookup transformation. In this demonstration, we're going to connect the cache transform to an OLDB source that connects to a SQL Server table. In order to connect the OLDB source to a SQL Server table, we need to create a connection manager. And we're going to select the AdventureWorks database. And in this demonstration, we're going to select the production.product table from the AdventureWorks database. Click OK to save our settings. Next, we need to configure the cache transform to connect to a cache connection manager and write the data from the connected data source to the cache connection manager. Now you configure the cache connection manager to specify the following. Which columns in the reference dataset are the index columns? The lookup transformation maps columns in an input data source only to index columns in the reference dataset. You must specify at least one column as the index column. In this demonstration, we're going to specify the product ID column as the index column because this is the common column between the input data source and the reference dataset. And we specify this as the index column by entering a number other than 0 in the index position of this table. Next, is the reference dataset that is stored in in-memory cache while the package runs persisted to a file? Saving the cache to a file and then using the file instead of a cache transform to write data to the cache connection managers enables you to share the cache between multiple lookup transformations in the different packages and to improve the performance of the lookup operation. You persist the cache to a file by selecting the Use File Cache option and typing the cache file in the file name box or browsing to the cache file. The extension of the file is RAW. Then we click OK to save our settings. Check the mappings of the cache transform, and as you can see, the product ID column is marked as the index column using this icon. The next step is to add the lookup transformation to the second data flow and connect it to an input data source. In this demonstration, the transformation is connected to an OLDB source, and the source is connected to a SQL Server table. We'll connect the source to the SQL Server table by using the same connection manager that we created in the first data flow, and then selecting the table from the InventureWorks database. We're going to select sales.sales order detail table. Click OK to save our settings. Now we need to configure the lookup transformation to specify the following. The reference data set will be cached before the lookup transformation executes. Therefore, we'll select the full cache mode. The lookup transformation will use a cache connection manager to connect to the reference data set. Therefore, we're going to select Cache Connection Manager in the connection type area. Then we click Connection and make sure that Cache Connection Manager is the selected connection manager, and this is the same cache connection manager that we created in the first data flow. Next, we need to map a column from the input data source to an index column in the reference data set to create a join between the two tables. The available input columns table represents the columns in the input data source, and the available lookup columns represent the columns in the reference data set. In this demonstration, we map the product ID column from the input data source to the column in the reference data set by dragging product ID from this table to product ID in this table. Now we need to select one or more columns in the reference data set in which we want to look up values. In this case, we're going to select the name value by selecting the name column. When the package runs, the lookup transformation will return rows with this value where the product ID in the input data source matches the product ID in the reference data set. Finally, we need to specify whether the values in the reference data set columns replace values in the input data source columns or are added as new columns. And we do this by configuring the lookup operation. In this case, we'll specify that a new column is created for the name value. Click OK to save our settings. Now we're going to connect the lookup transformation to an OLDB destination and add a data viewer to view the results of the lookup operation. And we're going to map the lookup match output to the OLDB destination. This indicates that only the matching rows will be outputted to the OLDB destination. And we're going to create a new table for the OLDB destination. Check the mappings to make sure that the columns are mapped correctly. Then click OK to save our settings. And now we will add a data viewer. Now we're ready to run the package. And as you can see, the lookup returned matching rows with the name column value. And the package ran successfully. This video demonstrated how to implement a lookup in a package by using a lookup transformation, cache connection manager, and reference dataset that is stored in cache. The video also demonstrated how to add a data viewer that displays the results of the lookup operation. Thank you for watching this video. We hope that you have found this of value and will return to the website to view other Microsoft SQL Server videos.